Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Breakdown with Renmar, a show where we analyze and break down my favorite sequences from each day of MPL Philippines Season 14. We're going to do something different for this episode as we're going to be focusing mainly on the hero Phoveus, inspired by this play by RSG Philippines EXP laner Nibor.
Gotta play around it, might be in the mid lane right now. Fighting it forward, Beacon versus the Netherrealm. All coming to head here as Light's gonna be the one to fall in under the turret. They get brought in with a wave as they go in with the Infernal Pursuit. Nibor still looking for more, possibly, but he might get cut off from his team. Pops the Vengeance, pops the Infernal Pursuit. What is that? Nibor still alive.
So we have to provide a lot of context to better understand what Nibor was able to pull off in that play. And we have to start our discussion with the abilities of Phoveus. We'll start things off with his passive skill, Demonic Force. His next basic attack allows him to charge at the enemy, knocking them back, but as I will show you on your screen here right now, it's actually a stun when it's played in this sequence, and it deals extra magic damage equal to 4% of the enemy's max HP, so it scales off of the max HP of the opponent, and it also gives him a little shield equal to 8% of the max HP of Phoveus. The effect of his passive has a 26 to 14 second cooldown based off of the level of his ultimate ability, Infernal Pursuit. But the important line here is actually the effect of Astaroth's Gaze. When an enemy hero blinks, dashes, or is displaced near Phoveus, the cooldown of his passive ability will be reduced by 20%, and the cooldown of his other skills will be reduced by half a second. This is why Phoveus shines in longer team fights when enemy heroes are getting knocked back, pulled back, are using their flickers, their dashes, and Phoveus is happy that all of them are clumped up together because it reduces the cooldown of his passive and his other skills. Before we talk about the other skills though, I feel like it's important to now talk about his ultimate ability, Infernal Pursuit. So Infernal Pursuit has two important effects, Sinner and Judgment. Demonic Force, his passive, Astaroth's Eye, a second effect of his first skill, and his second skill, Dark Wave, can apply Sinner's Mark to the enemy hero hit. As you can see in your screen right now, there's a purple thing above this Layla. That is the Sinner's Mark. Again, that is activated by a lot of things in his ability kit. Every ability that Phoveus has, besides his ultimate, activates a Sinner's Mark. This is the bread and butter of Phoveus. We know this is when he jumps up. When he jumps up, that is Judgment. Phoveus will jump into the air, dealing damage, scaling off of physical attack, plus extra physical damage equal to 5% of the target's max HP. So it scales off of the HP of the opponent to enemies in the area, while Phoveus also recovers 50 plus 6% of his lost HP. That recovery is one of the main reasons why he is built with Spell Vamp, because it just adds a little bit more to the healing that he already has in his kit. The HP recovered, however, is reduced when he hits multiple enemies. Now that we better understand his passive and his ultimate, we can go back to discussing his skills. So Demonic Impact is Phoveus's main poking skill, one of his main damage skills outside of his ultimate, and you can see that there are two effects. This is actually the second Demonic Impact. So when you hit Demonic Impact the first time, it will just be a nice simple poke. But Demonic Impact will have a second use, because when you hit an enemy hero, the next Demonic Impact will deal extra damage. So that's it. And this little thing that he leaves behind, that is Astaroth's Eye. That is one of the things that triggers Sinner's Mark. So when enemies are hit by that, as you can see, it leaves a Sinner's Mark. Phoveus' second ability is Dark Wave, and it's his main source of crowd control. At the same time, it deals damage, and most importantly, it triggers a Sinner's Mark, because not only does it knock up opponents, it also pulls them towards Phoveus. Remember, When enemy heroes are displaced near Phoveus, it reduces the cooldown of his passive ability, it helps reduce the cooldown of his other abilities, and it activates a Sinner's Mark. So when you put everything together, Phoveus' ability kit is really strong in terms of making plays for himself. His passive, when activated, has a knockback that triggers the Sinner's Mark of his ultimate. His first skill, the second activation of it, when it is able to deal damage, it triggers a Sinner's Mark. His second skill is a strong crowd control that triggers Sinner's Mark. Everything has something that will trigger a Sinner's Mark for his ultimate so that he can jump more. So you can tell that Phoveus is built for longer team fights, and that's why we're now going to look at Nibor's emblems. So he went into this with a fighter emblem set, meaning that he gets 22 adaptive attack, 10% spell vamp, and 6 hybrid defense alone from that emblem set. The hybrid defense is both physical and magic defense. And he went into this with agility, that is the green shoe, with 4%, or if I'm not, 4% extra movement speed, because since Phoveus doesn't have an innate dashes, well, technically outside of his ultimate, that extra movement speed allows him to better maneuver in the game. He also came into this game with a Festival of Blood, meaning that he gets 6% spell vamp off of the gate, but then at the same time, when he gets kills and assists, that will go up by 0.5 and get that effect 8 times for a maximum of a 10% spell vamp from his talents. And of course, he's using the Brave Smite talent so that he can get 5% of his maximum HP back every 6 seconds when he hits an enemy hero with his skills. Now that I've given all of the important context and you know how Phoveus works and the emblem set of Nibor, we can finally discuss what happened in that sequence. So you have RSG Philippines coming from multiple angles. You have Nibor coming from the south. You have Irad coming in from an angle where he can maximize the punctures and deal damage, a good damage as Lancelot. And you have the Jushin and the Harith coming from here. The Harith is behind the map, coming from an angle where they can supplement the setup by the Jawhead, supplement the damage of the Phoveus, and the only thing they have to watch out for is the fact that Heads and Kozen are in a good angle to stop them from entering the fight. They can block off the Harith and the Jushin, that's a Roger and an Arlott. But taking everything into consideration, this is gonna be a tough fight for TNC Pro Team, because again, they are all clumped up together. Even though the Phoveus, the healing that he gets from his ultimate will get reduced when he hits multiple enemies, that doesn't change the damage. They are all clumped up. The Lancelot's happy, the Harith is happy, Jushin is happy. This is the perfect start for RSG Philippines. And as we play the fight, Nibor already gets one Infernal Pursuit off. Escalera pulled back, Light's Jawhead, and he'll actually be triggering the Infernal Pursuit, because the key thing here is that Nibor was miraculously able to get off a Dark Wave. You see those two lines? That's one, that's the other line. That's the Dark Wave. He gets the Airborne onto the Kaja, the Airborne onto the Faramis, if I'm not mistaken, or I believe that could be Kozen. The important thing is that he gets the marks on them. You see, he jumps to Escalera, and then he'll jump back to Hatred, and then, or was that Kozen? He was just able to jump onto multiple members there of TNC Pro Team. And as it goes on, you see, the Lantern Flare of the Jushin is actually going to be able to pick up the Roger, pulls the Roger back, another Dark Wave goes off, and since the Roger is pulled back, it triggers the Infernal Pursuit. Easy jump there for the Phoveus. It's just jump city here for Nibor. He jumps onto Heads, and he gets out of the turret range. Now this is the important exchange we have to spot here. So as you can see, Nibor just used the enhanced basic attack. That's the Demonic Force. It's a fresh white bar under his health, and there's a Sinner's Mark on the Hayabusa. But watch the white bar after Arlott uses the second skill. So Arlott heads will stun him, but then when he uses the Vengeance, which of course dashes, it increased or decreased rather the cooldown of the enhanced basic attack from the passive, because that will trigger the cooldown reduction effect every time Arlott will use his second skill onto someone. STZYZ is still marked. Nibor pops his Vengeance so that he gets the reduced damage and he's able to hit some damage back. STZYZ has a Sinner's Mark over him. He'll get another Dark Wave off, knocking up 2. That is a Sinner's Mark for both. 1 on SD, 1 on heads. Enhanced basic attack is back again, gets the knockback and stun onto the Hayabusa, will get the jump down on him. Hatred tries to pull back Nibor, he does, but he'll only take 1 hit from the turret. It's measly. Aqua will be able to finish off Hatred. Lineup of the NC Pro Team is a nightmare for them because they're up against the Phoveus. This Phoveus was picked 4th by RSG Pro Team, and going up against Hayabusa that has his shadows to dash to, and when that is activated around Phoveus, it reduces the cooldown of his abilities, of his passive and the rest of his abilities. As we saw earlier, Arlott, when he uses his second skill, will trigger the cooldown reduction for the Phoveus. Escalera has an innate dash, and it's part of his main combo Asakaja, along with the flickers on the board for TNC Pro Team, meaning that it reduces the cooldown as well. And Kozen essentially has a hero that is built around dashing in and out of the fight, in and out of human form, and he also has a flicker. So really, it's such a nightmare for TNC Pro Team to go up against a Phoveus right now, because their entire lineup is a dream for a Phoveus. He gets a lot of chances to reduce the cooldown of his abilities, meaning that he can dish out more Sinner's Marks. Last but not the least, let's look at the item build that Nibor went for. Tough Boots. Since he's up against heroes that have good sources of crowd control, it reduces the crowd control effects by 30%. The Thunder Belt, it's relatively easy to deal the enhanced basic attack provided by the passive of the Thunderbelt, meaning that he can easily get those stacks, so he gets more hybrid defense. Good for a Phoveus. Remember, Phoveus shines in longer team fights. You have the Dreadnought armor here. The passive skill is called Deter, wherein if you get hit by an enemy's skill, it reduces their physical damage dealt by 4%. That can stack up to 3 times and has a 2-second duration, so that's potentially a 12% physical damage reduction in total up against the Roger and the Arlott that he was up against when they use their physical damage dealing abilities. One of his core items in this build is the War Axe, and notice how, because RSG Philippines, this is a signal that they were actually able to build a good lead for themselves. He didn't need to full build the Antique Cuirass. He just stuck with the Dreadnought armor and immediately went for the War Axe so that he can instantly get those increased physical attack the longer a fight goes on, because again, that's what a Phoveus is happy with, and he gets more spell vamp. It also allows him to deal a little bit of true damage. It gives him more HP, gives him a 10% cooldown reduction. Overall, a great item and a great item build for a Phoveus. And that's it for this episode of Breakdown with Renmar. Remember, we have another episode coming this week, Friday, before MPL Philippines Season 14 Week 3 begins. I hope you enjoyed this one, a bit of a more focused deep dive on one hero and one play. Fun fact, in case you didn't know, Nibor will now be the full-time EXP laner for RSG Philippines, as Naths is confirmed to be going to the USA, officially migrating there with his family, and so that means Nibor will be the main EXP laner for RSG, and he's already shined in the times that we've been able to see him. He got an MVP performance in his debut last season, and now Nibor has another MVP performance under his belt this season, and based on what I saw from Nibor, it's a young star in the making. Let's see what Coach Panda and his fundamentals can do. See you on the next episode. Thanks for watching.